baby. What up? What up? Neck crack, neck crack. Ha ha. Yo, mans run up, fall back like mission failed. It's been a minute since I cursed, finna live a spell. It's clandestine, my clandestine to ring a bell. Chillin' in the citadel, living well with it hell. It's a different vision, you listen and I give them hell. Spitting what I'm living, wondering like if it's real. Book shows, cook slow when the pot roll. Got close to my roots and I let the lines grow. Nah, but y'all know we keep it smooth and rugged. Word to Miss Armstrong, left and right in junior public. Knuckle bruise, hustle move, gotta school a youngin'. You can catch me on the weekend in the Uber buggy. You can catch me on the weekend sipping juice or something. Close rip, middle of the lack is then like who the toughest. Yeah, you I'ma rip it just because. Rippin' for my club, rippin' for my thug. Your girl laughing like a genie, wishing for a rub. And the camp will never see me, cause we swifter than a mob. Yeah, it's rated. Can't write it down.
Ever seen somebody hit some movements or like do things in a round that made you feel like that was you, like killing it? You ever had somebody made it, like, you know, you ever looked at somebody and been like, damn, I'm killing it right now through you?
But that's hilarious.
Like, I've had that experience. It's so
you feel like you're being drawn into it, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, is it like you feel like drawn into it, and that's why you feel like kind of
not just drawn in, you're like, I don't know, right now I feel like you're representing me and like I might as well be killing it. Like
crazy to find.
No, okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
You're like, get out of here. You're drunk. Go home.
Yeah.
Or let's say it's like, you know, you shared some movements with like your crewmates or your friends, right? And they enter the battle, and in that round where they're destroying it, they use those movements, you know? And then so part of you in there, right?
That I can understand when it's like you have some connection with the person already, like they're your crew or whatever, or you vibe with them. But like if it's some random person and they did something like crazy, I don't know if I would feel like I'm killing it.
I still feel like you can. If you're like, oh, so like I was in the Cypher at Skillsometer or
Cypher's a little different.
Oh, okay.
Okay, then in that case, I can kind of understand that.
Musically, right? It's like sometimes you're watching someone and you're like, oh, I would have actually killed it exactly like that.
Oh, yeah. And
then you're like, oh, that's like me. And then you feel like you killed it. You know?
That's so egotistical. No, I'm just kidding. No. I'm just kidding. No. But I was thinking more along the lines of like, yeah, and this is my, you know, way of thinking about things. It's like, you know, when you have those really good ciphers, it's those, how do you explain it? Like it's those sort of like spiritual moments where like you get so drawn into it, and you know you lose the whole thing. You know, it's kind of the thing that I mentioned sometimes of like what I was saying today about like doing it, the intrinsic what do you call it, intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic. Like, why are you doing this thing? Is it because you just like doing it, or is it because you're like getting props or you're getting whatever from it, right? And so like the best circles that I've been a part of is where whatever the level is, like it doesn't even matter, but and other people might have their own reasons for why they're going in and what they're doing, but when I'm there and when I go in, like if I have that mentality of like, I'm no longer trying to impress someone and I'm no longer trying to like get props from anyone. I just want to do it and connect with the music and just feel good. And that's when I get into those moments where like everything for me starts to like disappear of like, I'm me, you're Tafiya, this is so whatever. And like, you're just totally in the moment and totally free and whatever, like, and so in those moments, then it's like, this person's killing it. And it's not necessarily like I'm doing it or I would do it that way, but like you feel everyone is kind of one. This is like some hippie stuff, right?
No. Maybe that's what it is, you know, that I'm feeling in those moments too.
Yeah, but like, you know, you feel like everything that everyone is doing is connected and everyone is like kind of everyone becomes one, or whatever you want to call it, like whether the other people are on that same mentality. It's like for you, this is getting into like, now I'm starting to think about like simulations, and like that's your own reality. And
I mean, but you know, when you make these circles and these ciphers, each one is like its own universe, right? You know, so like technically speaking, you are making like an alternate reality space compared to the rest of the other circles or even the room.
yeah, yeah,
It's you know,
that's
and
like a
the
little pocket, right?
right, it's constantly changing according to the music or who's in it, and
Yeah.
like it's a very trippy experience. The thing that we're actually doing is very complicated,
Hmm.
higher level, but we just simplify it because we're just like, yeah, you know, it's just rolling on the floor and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you can have like a really good circle, and then just suddenly it just disappears
Yeah.
for
Or
whatever
like
reason.
one person goes in that just is on the different energy, or like, and they could just kill it like in a bad way and just be like, oh,
Yeah, well, like that, you know, that would depend who's in the circle, right? You know, if you have some people who are like maybe they just don't have the confidence or something. Maybe they have the skill, but they just don't have the confidence yet. But someone comes out and they do this crazy round, and like in your own head, in my own head, I might think like, damn, there's no way that I could follow that. But if you didn't think like that and you just went in and just did your thing and didn't care, like you maybe would be like on the same level or whatever, hypothetically, right? But because you told yourself like, damn, like I'm like you defeated yourself in a way. Yeah. Yeah, it's so crazy, like the mental side of breaking, and like this is all stuff that you just never think about, because or like it's harder to think about because it's all stuff in here, right? Like your body is so easy. Like I don't have enough strength to do that. I'm not flexible enough to do that. I feel tired. Like you feel it, right? But stuff with like your mentality and like the way you're perceiving things, like it's not immediately obvious to you of like, oh, this thing is actually happening, or like I'm perceiving it this way, but like other people might be seeing this thing a totally different way. And that doesn't even really matter, because like it's, what is my reality? This person just did this thing. Okay, how am I reacting to it? And like it doesn't even really matter what they're thinking, right? It's like, how do you react to it?
yeah, absolutely.
And like, but like you know, yeah, I just think people they don't think about that part of breaking, or that part of well, life in general.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
maybe it's changing more so now with like my generation, your generation, like people are thinking more about, you know, mental health and mental, like just your mental state and all these things. Maybe that's like bringing more awareness to other areas of things that people do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that definitely has been coming up for me over the last 2 years around like the mental game was those moments where, you know, you're at an event in the space with all these other people who you know or don't know, and you go in the circle, but like the energy is like very frantic,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you know you're in that like, okay, your mind is just like going, and then I was trying to figure out for a while, how do I get to that sweet spot where I don't care, you know, and where I can move freely, and you know, and it's almost like I have to dumb myself down or like create this like reductionist process where it's like you're gonna go in, and I don't care how crazy this music is, you're gonna keep it very basic until you can control your shit, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Like creating those processes to remind yourself that it's like it doesn't matter. You don't need to do anything fancy.
Yeah.
Just like yourself, like
Yeah. And like a lot of this stuff is like your own ego, and just dealing with that of like, okay, yeah, if I go in, like I feel like this is something that I really struggled with, and especially since like my mind has changed over the last few years on all like how I approach things. I still struggle with my old mentality of like, if I go in a circle, I have to like do something that's worthy of this circle or something like that, right? So like, you know, oh, there's this famous person or something like that, or this person that I looked up to. I can't look whack in front of them. And like, so it's that kind of thing that like you start to psych yourself out almost of like, wow, okay, I can only do this. I have to do this. And if I don't do it, then it sucks.
Yeah.
But if you just went in there and just did whatever and were able to just be more free and like, yeah, you try, maybe you try and do that, but then you mess up and then, but you just keep going and flowing out of it. Like it won't matter. Right.
Yeah.
And then, like, but part of that comes from just like training your body and training your knowing movement possibilities and these kinds of things, so that, you know, like you said, when you get to those situations, when those situations arise, are you able to act accordingly?
Yeah.
Are you able to do something out of it?
Yeah.
And like that's that, like, to me, that's when you have that mind body connection, and that's what creates the soul, sort of, whatever.
Yeah.
That unconscious process. The way I interpret soul these days is like your mind, your unconscious mind.
Interesting.
And so when you've like, yeah, trained your body to be able to do all these movements and has the strength to do it, has the flexibility to be free and move, then your mind is freed up to not concentrate on like how to do that stuff. Your mind is free to like be aware and recognize these situations and stuff like that. And the more familiar you are, the quicker your thought process can go. Like you recognize a situation and you're familiar with it, and you just immediately go to like, oh yeah, this move, I can do that out of it. And then, oh, I did this move, oh, I repeated it. But then the more you're like aware that you're repeating, then you just like, oh, I repeated, okay, maybe I have to go back into it, and then I have this like other exit that I can do. And now it's not a repeat. Now it's a, you know, like I'm showing you something and then giving you like, okay, I can do it, and I can do it this way, and I can do it this way. You know, so you turn a repeat into something else. But it's like familiarity with situations, and like allowing your brain, your mind to recognize these situations so that it can like, it's familiar with them, so it acts on them quicker. And then that's when you get the like that free, I'm not even thinking, I'm like thinking, but I'm not thinking. And that's like a soul kind of thing, right? Where you're
like
where you're not in control. You're not,
yeah,
you know, and like something nebulous out in this whatever, like this energy, when people talk about energy and all these things, and like, you know, catching spirits and whatever you want to call it, like that's the soul. That's when you're in a state where you've trained it enough, and then your mind can just like throw these things out and just vomit them out whenever it needs to. I don't know why I said vomit.
I was like, you know, especially more recently, I kind of like feel like it's even more beyond that for myself, like where like soul is just the core of that person's being, of like they in themselves, like outside of even their responses to their experiences.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like that specific, all the originality of you, right?
Yeah.
That is you.
Yeah.
And then there is your mind, and then there is your body. And I think that like through using your mind and your body, you prepare, or we prepare ourselves for these situations through movements. But then your being, which is ultimately in control of all of that, depending on how aware of yourself you are, right, is constantly adjusting or shifting. That's why you can't really hit the same round perfectly each single time. Yeah, not just because of the environment, because you are adjusting.
Yeah. Well, like, yeah, going off of that too, it's like every every moment is different from the previous moment in physically and
oh shit, we're getting
mentally.
real better right now.
Yeah. But yeah, it's that kind of thing. Like, you know, one of the things that I was thinking about is like, people talk about that state where, you know, you stop thinking, your mind is not there, like it's there and it's not there, and you know, you're aware of your body, whatever, these kinds of things, like those flow states. And they're kind of like, people will say like, yeah, you're really present in a sense. Like, to me that makes a lot of sense, because like you're focused on like what's happening now, the task right now, whatever that is, whether it's creating a move or whether it's the music that's playing and I have to move to that music. And you're just so focused on that you're not thinking about anything in the future. You're not thinking about anything in the past, right? But this is when I get into like philosopher mode or whatever. Like the present is it's the meeting point of those two things, right? So the present is constantly leaving past. It's like creating the past, and it's constantly like moving into the future.
Right.
So it's like, you know, in a way, like when you're creating on the spot, you're anticipating a little bit, right? So you're kind of in the future, but you're also drawing on like all your previous experiences, right? Of like, oh, the music's going to do this, I can do this, boom. And you just do it in like, it's past and future, like in this little tiny moment.
Yeah.
And so like you have to, I don't know, you have to, it's not even being aware, but like that's kind of what is happening in a stupid, non-scientific, explained on the fly way. But like that's how we work, I think.
There has to be that level of awareness too, though, right? Where, like, even in all the ways we can frame it, if we can keep exploring what that means, where even if some people are like, okay, well, I'm going to choose to acknowledge my future as just a continual present that I have yet to experience, you know? Because then, like, you know, and then the past as like as a present moment that has already like lived itself, you know, and like, you know, we are in this thing that is just continually moving forward because, you know, we are limited in our dimensional capabilities, and that's that whole you know what I mean? Like,
as of right now.
But yeah, like, you know, and through the movement, we are simultaneously able to go into the past, you know, and we're able to tap into future possibility. And yet at the same time, it'll never hit at the best. You can't recreate the perfect storm conditions, you know? So just to be like, remember this one time? Boom, I nailed it. And then the other time, you're like, all the conditions were there, but
yeah, you know, that gets into like some stuff that I've picked up just living in Japan or just learning about Japanese culture and stuff like that. And I think the basis comes from a Buddhist background. Like Japanese culture is kind of weird that people are not religious, but their entire culture is built on like a lot of religious foundations. So a lot of Japanese culture is actually based on like Zen and Buddhism. But damn, I lost it again. What was I talking about?
Japanese culture, it's kind of religious, but
you were talking about the moments, like you did this thing and like, damn, that was crazy, and you try and do it again and recreate it, and it just can't happen, like for whatever reason. But like that's one of those things where like, you know, the whole cherry blossom festival, of why that's so special in Japan is like the cherry blossom is not forever. It's only there for a short time. And so while it's there, you appreciate it, and it's beautiful, and even when they fall, like that has its own beauty. of like, it's not there anymore, it's gone, right? And so it was like, it's the beauty, this is like a really Japanese thing of like beauty in impermanence, or beauty in like imperfection or whatever. Like, this thing is not forever, it's not perfect, and you know, but it's still beautiful while you have the chance to experience it.
Yeah.
And like, that's what I think about, like why freestyle kind of stuff has become so much more interesting to me. But you still need to train like kind of more structured to be able to do that freestyle stuff. But yeah, like being able to create stuff on the spot, and like you recognize these situations and like, oh, I can do this, and oh man, like, and it's just like happening in that moment. And if you try and do it again, like it's not going to have that same feel maybe, or you might be able to recreate the move, but it just kind of, something feels a bit weird, and it might become one of those, you know, moves that you do, but then it just becomes like this thing that you do, and it's fine, like it may be cool, but it won't have that same feeling as that one time when you first did it in that specific moment with that specific movement, music, with those people or no people around you, with that floor, with the physical fitness that you were at, the mental state that you're in, like that's never going to be exactly the same. Yeah. Anyway.
And that's okay. And that's all okay. And we just got to live with it and deal with it and just figure out.
Like, it happened, right? And that's a beautiful thing. And we should be able to appreciate it. Like, you know, the fact that it existed is an amazing thing.
Yo, mans run up, fall back like mission failed. It's been a minute since I cursed, finna live a spell. It's clandestine, my clandestine to ring a bell. Chillin' in the citadel, living well within hell. It's a different vision, you listen and I give them hell. Spitting what I'm living, wondering like if it's real. Book shows, cook slow when the pot rolls. Got close to my